Hey everyone, I'm Gio. Thanks for being here. I'm just curious if you've ever felt completely lost. Like you don't know who you are, what you're doing, where you're going. Maybe life looks fine on the outside, but inside there's a quiet ache, a sense that something's off. Like you're drifting with no map. And if you're in that space right now, I want to tell you something very important, that you're not broken, you're not behind, you're not alone. Because what if feeling lost is actually a good thing? And I felt lost many times in my life. That's why I feel comfortable sharing this video. And looking back, I realized how important those moments were when I went through them. It could be a sign that basically where you were headed or where you were going is actually not what you're supposed to be doing. There's not alignment. You're feeling off. You're feeling confused. And we start to panic sometimes when we feel lost. Our mind starts to spiral. We start to think, I should have it all figured out by now. Look at so-and-so, they're married or they have this great job, or everyone else seems to know what they're doing, or that talk from like your parents or your friends, like, oh, you are going to figure it out. What if I never find my purpose? A purpose is something I definitely want to talk about. Like so many people I work with that come to our breathwork trainings or facilitator trainings, or when I'm at a retreat, or like, all I want to know is what my purpose is. Can someone just tell me, like someone's going to write for you on a silver platter, like God or the universe, like, here, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I think that's not why we were here, born into this mystery in the first place. But just pause for a second. What if that feeling of being lost is just space between the old you and the version of you that's ready to emerge, that's wants to come through? And in order to become that you, something has to change. Maybe a change in your life, a change in where you are right now, a change in direction. And I talk to people a lot about this, about when they start creating a vision of what they think they want in life and how they want to feel. And if it's completely different from where you are now, there's going to be that point where you're going to have to be completely lost, because the ego wants to cling on to what it knows. And when it's feeling and the heart's feeling like, hey, there's something more out there, there's this like separation, almost like an anxiety or feeling like, I don't know, outside of our comfort zone, because, the unknown is scary to the ego. So feeling lost is kind of being in that space. And growth almost always begins with disorientation, this discomfort. Like a caterpillar, once it starts to transform, these imaginal cells start to light up and turn on, that they're different from the old cells. And they start eating the old cells as like nutritional soup. And slowly the whole thing transforms, very disoriented. What's happening? You're going around from this thing that crawls around and just eats. All of a sudden, this beautiful thing that can fly and smell flowers, and it's a complete transformation. But there's that moment in between where it's like, okay, what is going on right now? I better just like put myself in a cocoon and wait this thing out. Okay, so on your process to becoming a caterpillar, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, I just want you to know that you're not lost. You're just in between versions of yourself. And there's been a lot of like stories throughout time about this process. And one of the famous ones that most of the stories follow is like the hero's journey. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's such a sacred part of that hero's journey. The ordinary world that you're living in, that you've always have, and there's this call to adventure. Something no longer feels right. It's strange. Something's pulling at you, and the fear kicks in. What if I fail? What will people think? Am I good enough? The imposter syndrome. We all feel that. You take on a new adventure, or you meet some new friends, or you start a new business, or you want to become a breathwork facilitator. Can I do this? I'm an imposter. Who am I? And then comes the initiation, where you step into the unknown. And you might still be feeling lost at this time, where you're just kind of like feeling the courage to put yourself out there a little bit. The reward is when we start doing that, is you slowly start to find yourself. You find your purpose, you find your truth. And sometimes it's not linear. We've got to go through a few of these feeling lost moments in our life. And I've gone through so many of them, but each time there was like an evolution. Some were bigger, some were smaller. I've found a lot of tools that have helped me, like breathwork, meditation, healthy eating, plant medicine. And you can find your own tools that help you in those times, being supported, having community, having someone to talk to. But the most important thing is not to be afraid, is to be like, okay, I probably called this into my life. I asked for this. And sometimes the worst experiences I've had, where I would have done anything to go back 6 months earlier. Before that happened, I would have done anything to stop the way I was feeling in that moment, feeling lost. But looking back in the future, it's like, oh, that was so important, because of that, my life changes a certain way. That failure, that crazy thing that happened, that death in the family, that injury, even sometimes the worst things are actually good for us. And there's a great book called The Surrender Experiment. There's an amazing story about the Chinese farmer that talks about like, we never know in that situation if something is actually good for us or not. The Chinese farmer story, his horse runs away. Everyone in the town's like, oh, what bad luck you have, bad fortune. Next day, the horse comes back with 2 other horses. Everyone's like, oh, you have such good fortune. And each time the crowd and the town comes in, the farmer's like, we'll see. His son tries to like break in one of the horses that get used on the farm, gets thrown off, breaks his leg. Everyone comes, oh my God, what bad fortune you have. And then a week or two later, war breaks out and they try to come and, recruit all these young men. And obviously his son can't go to war. Like, oh, what good fortune you have. And he's like, we'll see. The moral of the story is like, we don't know in that moment if it's actually good or bad, but our mind is always like, I feel lost. I don't know what's going on. I have such bad luck, self-talk. So what I'm trying to say is, if you feel lost, maybe you're not falling apart at all. Maybe you're just hearing that call and something is moving within you. And, the mind always wants certainty, wants answers, steps, strategy. And when you're lost, the mind starts to panic. But the heart, it knows, it doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you don't listen to it, it'll get louder. But it often says like, slow down, listen, be still. Your heart will show you the way. I promise you this, although your mind is probably saying like, what do you know? And one of my hardest times I was going through is I opened this new business and it went over my head as far as like, I'd never done a business like this before and I didn't know what I was doing and I spent more money than I thought. And I was just like, man, this business is going to end me. And my teacher said, and he giggled, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Like, what do you mean everything's going to be okay? You have no idea what I'm going through. My mind is just like, what the hell's going on? But he was right. And that business in that time, even though it never really made any money and it was stressful for a while, it was planting seeds and create all these other new opportunities and connections and networks that I couldn't see happening at that time because my mind was in fear. And looking back now, all the things I'm doing today kind of sprouted out of that business there. So instead of like in those moments, like what should I do? Like try to figure it out. It's like, how do I want to feel in life? How do I create the shift? And just know like time will pass. And if you can learn and transform and change, you can shift into something new. And it's not so much about changing the outside, it's what needs to change in you, a belief, a fear, a core wound that you have. And these moments are really important times to reflect on how this is making you feel. And the thing is like this version of how you want to feel in the future, and it's good to create a vision of what you actually want in life, but based on how you want to feel, is don't worry about how it's going to happen. What are all the steps to get there? The mind comes back in, okay, like to get there, I gotta do this. It's like, no, like one thing at a time. What's this first small change I gotta make? The Tao, or the Tao, has a little wisdom, and I have a pocketbook, the Stephen Mitchell Tao, which is my favorite one. There's this concept called Wu Wei, and again, if my pronunciation is not great, I apologize, but it's doing without doing. And Alan Watts says like muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. And when we force answers, what that means is like once you sort of step into your intuition, like you do things without even thinking about it, they just start happening. Synchronicity, following our heart, not really trying to mind figure it out. I need to do this and conquer. When we force the answers, we often stir up more confusion. When we slow down, breathe, breathwork is probably the best tool. We start to allow the solutions to start to rise on their own and they reveal themselves. And I learned this the hard way because as an analytical person, my whole life I was trying to figure things out, problem solve, ADHD brain, and the process for me was just slowing down. And meditation was very hard, but I used breathwork. And breathwork helps us to get these flow states. It helps us to go beyond that analytical part of our brain that kind of always slows us down. And this is why like contemplation is so powerful, spending time without your phone, distractions, sitting in the stillness, doing practice like breath work, meditation, maybe even plant medicine if you feel called to it. And again, we will never feel like we have time, especially when we're lost. I need to figure this out and do things, but like slow down, let your soul kind of just sit in that and let the answer come to you. And sometimes it's hard to sit in that uncertainty and that discomfort, but that's where the growth happens. The lotus flower grows out of the mud towards the light, but we got to sit in that mud. If we avoid that, we're probably going to cling back to the old things, the old patterns. But if we allow ourselves to sit and really feel it and just ask, like, why is this happening to me? What's in this for me? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. That's when the answers emerge. And contemplation is like in between, like focus, like certain meditation where you just focus on something. And then there's certain meditation where it's like you just let go. But contemplation is kind of like subtly asking questions and just sitting with it. It's a little bit of thinking, a little bit of kind of just being, but finding that balance, because it doesn't mean to throw away your analytical mind. That's a superpower that has helped you. Like all these skills you've learned, you can use in the new version of you. But we have to find that balance within our heart. Again, when we feel lost, it activates this inner critic. You should be farther by now. Look at them, they're crushing it. Comparison, like I was big in my life. And I realized I didn't need to be like anyone because I couldn't be like them. They're different. They have their own journey. What I need to find out was like, who was I supposed to be? And what needed to change within me was what I figured out after having some realizations that, I had to have an inner change for my outer world to change. When people come to about figuring out their purpose, like your purpose isn't something you find with your mind. It's something that as you get more aligned and you clear out all the beliefs and the blockages and you start learning about yourself, it just comes, you feel it. It starts to, you attract it. Your intuition leads you there versus trying to figure it out, because you're never going to find your purpose but figure it out, and no one's going to hand it to you on a silver platter. That voice you're hearing, it's pretending to be logic and pretending to be smart, but it's just protecting you. The ego is like, do not go into the unknown. Comparison is a lie. Most of the things you see on social media is their curated lifestyle. It's not their breakdowns, their doubt or darkness. So, comparison is a good thing to try to recognize, like, hey, like I shouldn't compare myself to others, but connect to yourself. That's what's most important. Connect to people who understand, who've been in the moment you're in, who want to support you without judgment. That's huge. Having a supportive community or a few friends that you can trust is super important when you're feeling lost. So, I felt lost, as I mentioned many times. And again, what I've learned now is, okay, just be with this moment. It's going to pass, but there's something I need to learn that's really powerful here. It's going to help me to become this new version of me that's trying to emerge. So number one, if I have to make it like practical, is find 5 to 10 minutes a day to just be still. No phone, just breathe, feel, don't try to fix it. Maybe you want to contemplate, ask yourself a question, like, what's my heart asking for? Why is this coming up right now? What does it try to show me about myself? If I wasn't afraid, like, what would I explore? And follow what feels right. Even if it's small, just what brings peace and curiosity, because curiosity and intuition are very closely related. Like that curiosity, like you have when you're a kid that's learning and growing, we lose that because of fear as we get older, to be less curious, put ourselves out there more, don't want to fail, we don't want to be judged. But just trust that in-between moment. Like, don't rush the clarity, let the muddy water settle, don't rush your healing, let yourself slowly unfold. And it's going to be uncomfortable, like you're going to be in that river of misery where you want to get to the other side, in the middle, the rapids are there and you're confused, but we have to wait in that until we're ready to move to the other side. We can't force it. So if you feel lost, the most important thing is just take some steps, reflect, journal, and just be open to the new you that's trying to emerge, the new opportunities and synchronicities, and try to get yourself in that feeling of, who do I really want to be? How do I want to feel? Not what am I doing, not how much money am I making, not how am I going to get there, but what does that version of you feel like? And maybe it's some of the opposites of what you feel now, more connected, more playful, more in love, have more purpose, be feeling fulfilled, start feeling into that. This is not the end of your story. This is just a new chapter that's beginning. So you're not failing. You're being invited to just listen, have more self-awareness, trust more, have faith. Those are some big things that you learn as you go more down the spiritual path. And it's going to help you to transform more gracefully. So you're on this hero's journey. This is the part where the real magic begins. And I want to thank you for being here. Know that I've been there before, and I'm still on this journey. I'm still figuring it out as I go along. But these few things have really helped me, and I hope that I can help you as well. So if there's someone you think might need to hear this, share this video with them. I'd love to hear what you're going through or any feedback or comments you have below. But if you want to get more of these videos, you can like, subscribe, follow, whatever you want to do. Geo, thank you for listening. And also check out GeoCast on Spotify podcasts. I put those up from time to time as well. Peace.